Well, good morning. Good morning. I was telling Pastor Austin earlier in the lobby, this is the first 9 a.m. service I've been on time for in like a couple of years. I've been working nights, and I go to bed like around 3:30, and I don't make it on time for the service anymore. But today, I made it, so that's good. Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping things first before we kind of get started and look into God's Word this morning. Most of you know, if you're new here, if you're new here, first of all, welcome. You are safe. You are loved. We're glad you're here. But our lead pastors are on sabbatical right now through the summer. From July through the end of September, they are off. And that is a great thing. They have dedicated 20 years of their lives to be lead pastors at this church, 30 years in full-time vocational ministry, and that's a long time. And so when this idea was accepted by Dav and we moved and passed this resolution for them to take sabbatical, I'm telling him, this is going to be great. It's going to be really great for the church. It's going to be healthy for us to exercise our own faith muscles and be here. Without him here, it's going to be good. And it's obviously going to be good for them. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I really hope this goes well. Like, I don't know. But it's gone exceedingly well. Every service, like the presence of God is growing here. Thanks so much to the prayer workers. I don't see Lauren Zeff, but thanks so much. She leads our intercessor team. Thanks so much to them for leading our team of prayer workers. They pray before every service. They're here praying over every chair where you sit, and they're doing the work. In my mind, like that is the litmus test for, is this church going well? Are we doing good things? Well, if we're connecting people to the Lord, then that's everything, right? And that is happening. Every service, people are spending time at the altars, and I'm so thankful. Thanks, Pastor Jess, stepping up, being the interim pastor, and organizing and directing the ministry. It's been so valuable. Things are going very well, and I just appreciate all your extra work. Pastoral staff, thank you, and thank you to you all. It's not every church would this happen. Like serious. Sometimes the lead pastor goes, and things can just kind of dwindle and not continue forward, but you guys are all showing up. You're bringing your faith expectation for God to move. You're coming prayed up, and I thank you. I thank you for that, because it's a big relief off my shoulders, and it'll be Pastors Dav and Laura are going to be so happy when they come back and see that the church is thriving. So great job. Thank you. I appreciate you all. All right. When Dab talked about this, about us doing, going through, these stories that shape us. This is the series that we've been doing this summer to look at characters in the Bible and pick something about them and give a message. Immediately I thought Boaz. I've loved the story of Ruth since I got the opportunity. I actually, many, many years ago, I went to seminary and had the opportunity to translate this book from Hebrew into English. And before that time, I didn't think about this book much at all. Afterwards, I love it. And Boaz is a character he's a hero of mine, somebody I strive to be like. And so we're going to look at him today. And so we're going to open to the book of Ruth. If you want to go there, we're going to end up reading a lot of Ruth chapter 2. But before we get there, this book starts off, and I want to be a good Bible scholar, a good Bible student for those of you who are HSM students. And if you're not, you should be, because it's really good. Dr. Dav is a great Bible teacher. He teaches us there's 3 A's to look at for every book to dissect it: author, audience, agenda. So, Book of Ruth, author, we have no idea, but probably somebody during either King David or King Solomon's reign, and looking back and telling this story about the period of the Judges. The book starts off, verse 1, saying, in the days when the judges judged, is the wooden translation, or when the judges ruled, these things happened. So if you are a Bible student, if you're familiar with the time of the Judges, you know this isn't a bright spot in Israel's history, right? There's a phrase repeated over and over again in the book. It says, during that time, there was no king in Israel, and everybody did what was right in their own eyes, right? They lived, maybe I'll say this, they lived out their own truth, right? They did what they thought was right. I think that maybe we're thinking that could relate to today. There's people who use that very phrase, I'm going to live out my truth. And unfortunately for Israel, as everybody was doing that, and there was no central leadership leading them to God, things disintegrated very terribly. And there's this repeated pattern in this story where there's apostasy. The Israelites are drawn away by the Canaanite gods, the foreign gods. They worship them, leads to moral degeneracy, which then leads to God sending an oppressor that oppresses them. God had made himself known miraculously over and over again to the Israelites, but unfortunately after a generation or two, they forgot him, they rebelled, worshiped other gods, and so he sends oppressors, and then they know enough to say, hey, wait a minute, we're the chosen people of God, the Almighty God, the Creator. We are his people, we're sons and daughters of Abraham. Why are we being oppressed by a foreign nation? And so they cry out to God. And God hears their cry, raises up a judge, not a central king like David, but a judge is like a local tribe, like a tribe or two, a leader of a local region, and he kicks out the oppressor, and they celebrate. Yay! Here we are again. We're free of the oppressor. And after a few years goes by, then they repeat the pattern. They get drawn away by another god. So this is the setting, the time period of this story. And that'll be important for us later. So as the story begins, there's a famine in the land, and the two characters at the beginning are Elimelech and Naomi. Now, their names mean something, and you'll notice that in this story, every name means something, and it'll be played out in their character. Elimelech, his name means God is king, and Naomi, her name means pleasant one. So they live in the area of Bethlehem in Judah, but there's a famine, and the famine is so severe, they leave and they go to the nation of Moab. And if you're familiar with the time of the Judges, Moab was one of Israel's oppressors during that time. And so the audience would think, hey, wait a minute, Moab, we don't like those guys, why are they going there? Well, the famine apparently was really bad. And Naomi and Elimelech, they bring along their sons. Their sons are named Mahlon and Chilion. Again, everybody's name means something. Mahlon means sickness, Chilion means wasting. So I don't think things are going to turn out well for those guys. But before anything bad happens, at least they get married. They get married to Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. But then shortly after that, Elimelech, Naomi's husband, dies. Sickness and wasting, they die. Naomi and her daughters-in-law, devastated, right? Obviously, if we were in that scenario, heavy grief, horrible, very hard thing to move through in life. But at least during times like today, things are so much more convenient than they were during ancient Israel. It's not quite as devastating, right? I still can go to Safeway and buy groceries. I still probably have a car that I can drive and transport around. I can turn a faucet on and water comes out. None of those things existed at that time. And if you didn't have a husband around and weren't able to raise up sons, well, you've got no protection. You've got no workers out in the field to harvest your food and tend to your cattle and all that sort of thing. It's much more devastating. So they're devastated, and Naomi, says that she's on the road, and she tells her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, she says, hey, I'm getting old. I had my kids, but unfortunately they're gone. You guys, turn back. Just stay in Moab, and you're going to find yourself a new husband, and may God show you his steadfast kindness. May he pour that out on you. And that word for steadfast kindness, steadfast love. It's the Hebrew word chesed. Can everybody clear their throat real good and say chesed? Chesed. Key phrase in this story, chesed. And Orpah, not Oprah, Orpah, her name means neck. And when Naomi tells her, hey, go back to your people and stay there, go find a husband, Naomi sees her neck because she turns and you just see her neck and she's gone back to Moab. Ruth, her name is friend. And Ruth clings to her mother-in-law and says, no, where you go, I go, your people, my people, your God, my God. And she shows her God chesed in that moment. So they head back to Bethlehem in Judah, and this is where we're going to pick up the story where they meet Boaz, our featured character today. Chapter 2, verse 1, now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side from the clan of Elimelech, a man of standing, say standing, standing, whose name was Boaz. Boaz's name means in him is strength. And the very first thing we get to know about Boaz is he has a reputation amongst the people there. His reputation is he's a man of standing. That either applies to his financial standing or it applies to his moral character. It can mean both, and translators really translate it both ways. There's translations that say he's a man of wealth or he's a man of great wealth and influence. Others say he's a mighty man, worthy. Either way, I think both apply here. You're going to see in his character and his means, he is a man of standing in both ways. And it's important to know, the townspeople know that. They know him to be that way. That's his reputation among them. All right, verse 2. And Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and began to glean in the field behind the harvesters. So the first verse introduced us to the character of Boaz, but Naomi and Ruth aren't thinking about him yet. They don't. Naomi knows who he is. Ruth doesn't know. She's from Moab. No idea who he is. She's just spitballing. She's like, okay, we're back in town. We don't have any food. And so here's my plan for the day. It's the time of barley harvest. So that means men are out working in barley fields. They use like those big sickle knives and they're cutting the grain. And then women come behind them and they bundle all that grain together into sheaves. And then later the men pick up the sheaves. The sheaves are like think hay in the barn, a bundled group of hay. And so Ruth's plan is, well, in that process, some grain gets left behind, fallen down in the field. And so I'm going to go out and start picking up what's left behind. And hopefully I get enough that like we can have a meal tonight. Like that would be super. And so this practice is actually talked about in the Levitical law. God says, hey, when you go and you harvest the grain in your fields, I want you to not go over it a second time. Like cutting all this pieces of grain, stuff's going to fall off, but leave everything that falls behind so that the foreigner, so that the widow can come behind you and have something to eat. So this is what Ruth decides to do. Now remember, she's deciding to do this during the time of the judges, not a time known that Israel was super righteous and things were going well, but this is at great risk to her. At best, maybe she'll get some ridicule, and at worst, really abuse for going out as a foreign woman, as a Moabite during this time. But the next sentence says, as it turned out. Somebody say, as it turned out. Thank you. This type of phraseology is repeated in this book a few times. And the wooden literal transition of what the Hebrew writer says, he says, by chance she chanced upon a field belonging to Boaz. Okay, so what is he saying there? By chance she chanced upon. There's some sarcasm there, right? He doesn't mean that it was by chance, and that's not the ancient Israel mindset. The mindset is God is behind the scenes, guiding, directing our steps, guiding and directing where things are going, and he guided and directed her steps right to this man who has wealth and who has strong moral character. He protected Ruth and made sure she was guided and came to this place. Verse 4, just then. Again, somebody say just then. Just then, just so happened to be, just then, as Ruth was going out to the field, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you, they called back. I love this exchange between boss and worker. I've always thought it was great. It shows the character, again, of Boaz, that he's a man of grace. Grace is the first thing out of his mouth when he sees his workers who he's familiar with. He sees them every day. When he arrives in the morning, the Lord be with you. And it's reciprocated. They respect him. They love and honor him as well as they feel loved and honored by this man. Boaz asked the foreman of his harvesters, "Whose young woman is that?" The foreman replied, "She is the Moabitess who came back with Naomi." She said, "Please, let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She went into the field and has worked steadily from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. When Naomi and Ruth came back, one thing we didn't highlight was the town was astir. Bethlehem was astir. They knew Naomi, and they probably had heard, or at least now that she was back with her daughter-in-law, like, what happened to Elimelech? What happened to Malion? What happened to Kilion? And as the town is astir, there's this dramatic scene where Naomi says, "Don't call me Naomi. Don't call me pleasant one or sweet one. Call me Mara. I'm bitter." Mara is bitterness. I am bitter now because of all these things that have happened to me. So Boaz would have heard of this story. And he also knew, it says that he was from the tribe or the clan of Elimelech, that he's one of her relatives. He's a relative of Naomi. So he knows now, okay, here's Ruth. She's sacrificing herself. She is risking her own safety, her own well-being, and for absolutely no reason is helping her mother-in-law, and came just to glean in the fields and hopefully get enough food. So verse 8, Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the girls. I have told the men not to touch you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." At this she bowed down with her face to the ground. She exclaimed, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." A couple of things in that passage that I want us to notice. One, so Boaz has means. He's got employees under him, and there's this hierarchical structure of his employees. He has a foreman, and he has workers. And when he notices Ruth and asks his foreman about her, and he tells her the story, it's easy sometimes when you're a boss, when you've got all these people under you, to assign someone to go and talk to that person and move on with what's important in your day. Boaz doesn't do that. Boaz comes to her directly. He's approachable. He's invested in her safety and her well-being. And he takes the time. As Pastor Dav says, he's got slow feet and a soft heart. he took time to approach her and greet her and let her know that you are safe and you are loved. And here you'll find safety. You'll find your resources, and I'll protect you. And when Boaz blesses her and says, may the Lord repay you for what you have done, and he says, may you be richly rewarded by the Lord under whose wings you have come to take refuge. He is blessing her and telling her, may you find favor in God and may he provide for all your needs. But who in this story is providing for her needs? It's Boaz. It's him, right? And this is the thing about this story. This story shows Ruth and Boaz that they make these sacrifices for other people. They care for them, and they show this great love and kindness. And what the author is showing us is that this is what God is like. God cares for you. He's willing to sacrifice for you. He will protect you, and he will care for you. And there's these kind of little hints in this story to where you see these characters are playing out the characteristics and the nature of God. All right, verse 13. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she said. You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here. Have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar. When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men. Let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her. I think Boaz says this. It says, as she got up, he said this. I think Boaz is telling his workers this in her presence, so she fully knows when she goes out, wow, I am protected, I am safe. And this guy is offering up his resources, his food, having his laborers work on my behalf to care and protect for me. So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted to about an ephah. An ephah is roughly enough food for a person for like a week and a half. That's really good. She's thinking at that time, hopefully we get enough for a meal for us tonight, and she has enough food for over a week. Wow. She carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you. Do you hear that shock? Like a double question. It's the same question. She asked it twice. Where did you glean? Where did you work? Tell me. Where'd you find all this food? Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she had been working. The name of the man I worked with today is Boaz. In the Hebrew, it's this long, like kind of drawn out, all these words that's supposed to be like dramatic to finally get to this emphasis of the last word. The guy who took care of me, the reason we have enough food for more than a week for us is Boaz. The Lord bless him, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. She added, that man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers. Then Ruth the Moabite said, he even said to me, stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all my grain. Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for him, because in someone else's field you might be harmed. So Ruth stayed close to the women of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvests were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Okay, a couple things from this passage I also want us to notice is, one, Naomi says, the Lord bless him. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead. When she's saying he has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead, is she talking about the Lord, or is she talking about Boaz? Yes. right? It's hard to separate it because she says, before that, she says, the Lord bless him, bless Boaz. And after that, it says, that man is our close relative, one of our guardian redeemers. Like, she's talking about both at the same time. And again, I think that's, commentators will say, like, hey, we think most likely he's talking about the Lord, but maybe she's referring to Boaz. We can't fully dissect it. And I think that's part of the point. I think that's the expertise of the author and his writing, saying Boaz doing what the Lord is doing in this scenario. He's acting out the characteristic, the nature of God, providing for her. You can't separate really the two. It's that he is doing what God is doing, and God is using him to provide for Naomi and Ruth. And Naomi says, that man is one of our guardian redeemers. So at that time, and provided for in the books of the law, the Israelites, they inherited land when they entered into the promised land, and it's all separated by their clans and by their tribes. And it was important that you kept your land and that you passed it on through your family. You raised up children. Everybody helped in the fields to harvest the grain, do all the work in the field. And it was an important thing, because it's an agricultural society, right? If you don't have land to tend and can't grow your own food, then it's really hard to make it in an agricultural society. So she says, that guy is one of our guardian redeemers. So if someone sold land outside of the family, it was supposed to be up to a guardian redeemer, a close relative, to purchase that land. And not only that, if the family fell on hard times and, let's say, a husband died and left no heir to inherit that land, it was the close relative's duty to marry the widow and raise up children for his relative's benefit, to continue to steward that property and pass it on to the next generation. Okay, and that's going to be important as we continue with this story. We're not going to read it anymore. I'm just going to summarize. So Naomi and Ruth are doing relatively well, and Naomi now says, hey, Ruth, I'm old, but I need to take care of you, because after I'm gone, what are you going to have? So here's what you're going to do. You're going to dress up all fancy. You're going to go meet Boaz at the threshing floor, but go under the cover of night, and you're going to uncover his feet, and he'll tell you what to do. So she goes, and she does that, and she tells Boaz, hey, spread the cover of your blanket over me. And that's a very similar phrase as that what Boaz had said to her about seeking refuge under the wings of the Lord. And Boaz is also a sign that she wants to marry him, and he says, hey, you are a woman of noble character. Everybody in this town has seen the type of person you are, and I'm going to be glad to. And I am a redeemer of yours, of your family. However, there is a redeemer, there is a relative that is closer to your family line, closer to Naomi and Elimelech than I am. So, that other redeemer, he has a right to purchase your property and marry you to raise up children for that property. And Boaz says, I think like with a little bit of like cockiness, I'm going to go talk to that guardian redeemer, and if he wants to buy your property, good, let him buy it. But if not, don't worry, because I'm going to buy it. And so the very next day, of course, he sends Ruth away. He gives her 6 measures of barley because he's super generous, and he just keeps providing and giving. And the next day, just so happened, chapter 4, that he meets that guardian redeemer at the town gate. He grabs him, he grabs some elders, and he says, okay, sit down, we've got some business to do. And he tells the guardian redeemer, this other family member, very skillfully, he says, hey, by the way, Naomi, your close relative, she's selling this property. Would you like to buy it? And he goes, yeah, that sounds great. I get to buy a piece of property and add to my own estate, my own property. I get to, spread out and have more. Sure, I'll do that. And then he says, oh yeah, wait, by the way, if you do that, you get to marry her daughter-in-law, Ruth, and then you get to father children and steward them and then pass that property along to them, and it's not going to be in your name anymore. He says, oh. You know what? That might endanger my estate, and I'm out. You go ahead and buy it. And so, of course, Boaz does. He buys it. He and Ruth get married, and most of you know what happens next. They have a child, Obed. Obed is the father of Jesse. Jesse, the father of David, King David, who unites Israel. Going back to author-audience agenda, this book was written most likely during or after the reign of King David. And to me, it's almost like the author is trying to tell you, hey, look, there's this time of the judges where people did what was right in their own eyes, and things degraded pretty badly in the book of Judges. If you read the end of it, you don't need to watch horror movies. Go just read the end of that story. It's bananas. But the author is saying, hey, look, you, the people of God, your king who loved me, he came out of these people. This is what he is like. This is how his people love each other. And they end up being not only in the lineage of King David, but in the lineage of Jesus, right? Ruth the Moabitess, Ruth the foreigner, is named in the line of Jesus when he is born. Okay, so I've got 3 questions. It's 10:21. I think we're doing well. I've got 3 questions that I think we can ask ourselves that pertain to Boaz and his life. The first question is, who is my guardian redeemer? And I don't mean that as who's going to marry me and raise up children, but I mean the idea of a guardian redeemer, which Boaz was. Boaz restored for Naomi. He restored a property that was going to go outside of her family line. That was something that she would depend upon for her own sustenance, her own daily life, and her ability to pass on to her kids, which had all died, but he restored it. He redeemed it. That role of someone who restores and redeems, that is ultimately a foreshadow of Jesus who was to come, right? And he is our guardian redeemer. Colossians 1:13-14, for he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Hebrews 9:12, he, Jesus, entered the most holy place once for all by his own blood, having obtained eternal redemption. Titus 2:14, Jesus, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all wickedness and to purify for himself a people that are his very own, eager to do what is good. We're going to open up the altars here in a little bit, and when we do, if you don't know Jesus as your Redeemer, if you're struggling with a way of life that you don't like, that you don't want, and you feel like you need restoration, redemption to how you're originally designed to be, I've got good news for you. Jesus is your guardian redeemer, and he is here today, and we would love to pray for you, and we'll have that opportunity here in a few minutes. Second question, what by chance am I chancing upon? This story, it plays out like a drama. It really does, with God the author behind the scenes, guiding and directing all this stuff. And the biggest chance that happens is, Ruth just so happens to show up at Boaz's field. She is spitballing. There's lots of fields she could have gone to, but God directed her right to Boaz's field. And that's usually how I think the author intended that not coincidence to be seen. But the other way I want us to think about it is from the view of Boaz, because Boaz is going about his daily life, and then Ruth the Moabite, who ends up being a relative of his, just shows up. And he takes that opportunity immediately to go and protect her, to provide for her, and to take care of her needs. And so my question that I think I want to ask us is what is God directing in your life? What is he chancing upon in your life that are opportunities for you to provide, to protect, to care for somebody? I mentioned in that story, but Pastor Dav talks about it a lot, that it's good to go around with slow feet and a soft heart, to be willing to give of your time and your attention to those who are directly in front of you. Sometimes God might direct things and chance them for really big things. And an example I was thinking of, my friend Pastor Mike, he took a trip. He was taking a mission trip to Uganda in 2002. And when he was in Uganda, I can't remember why, but he ended up being directed to a nation right next door, which was Rwanda. And in Rwanda, he saw children orphaned from the 1994 genocide, and some of them were, just digging through dumpsters trying to find food. And he heard God say, "Well, these are my kids, and what are you going to do?" And here he is in a nation he wasn't planning on going on, just sees a need, hears the voice of God, and now here we are. It's 2025, 23 years later, and he had started 10 Talents International, and they've been feeding, housing, and teaching life skills to orphans ever since. Like, that was a big, big moment in his life where my friend Mike is a Boaz, for sure. But God might do big things like that and find you, but he also really just little things. There are little things in your life every day. In a few minutes, we're going to go out into the cafe, and there might be a moment out there. Have slow feet, soft heart, and be ready to invest in those in front of you. And then the last question I want to ask is, what is my reputation? Boaz certainly had a reputation. It's the very first thing we know about him when he was introduced in this story. Also, the character that he's contrasted with is the guardian redeemer, this guy who's not named. He also had a reputation of somebody who's probably selfish and not going to purchase the property because he had duty to do with it, right? In this story, where every name means something, this guy wasn't named. And I think that it's that way because what the author is saying is that the person in this life's pattern is just not worth being named. Like he's so worthless that I'm not even going to tell you what his name is. In the contrast, that with Boaz, the author is saying, which one are you going to be like? There's this character over here, Boaz. This over here, the unnamed guy. And I'm in law enforcement, and when we have training, an often used phrase for when somebody really screws something up, and we say, don't be that guy. Well, I would say that in this setting, like this guardian redeemer, don't be that guy. Don't be that unnamed guy. Be the guy like Boaz, who's ready to give of your time, your attention, your resources, and your reputation of being known as someone like that truly matters. Matthew 5:14, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." God wants to make himself known in this earth, and his primary way of doing that is through you, and it's through your good deeds, it's through your acts, it's through how you are known. And the key way that he wants to do that is actually through how we treat each other and love each other, those closest to you, the people in this house, those in your family. He wants you to love each other so deeply to show the kind of chesed, the kind of love that Ruth and Boaz show to each other. He wants you to show that kind of love. John 13:34 through 35, Jesus says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And by this, everyone will know you are my disciples if you love one another." It's not even about, it is about, it's important how we treat people outside of the church and people outside of these walls, but he's talking about how the disciples treat each other. And by that love is how he's going to make his way known. Now think about the backdrop for this story again, because this is the time when the judge is judged. Prayer workers, if you could come up, this would be a super time. So think about Israel's history. So I know that for me, it's easy to think like, okay, if God would just show up, if he'd do a big miracle, then surely righteousness will increase in our land. People will turn to him and see him if he does some big, crazy miracle. Well, in ancient Israel, I mean, they were delivered from Egypt. Lots of miracles, right? All the stuff with the plagues, the Passover, crossing of the Red Sea, and miraculous provision in the desert, right? But did that mean that for generations to come, they were going to serve God? It really didn't. And even during the time, those that saw the miraculous works of God, they had a complaining problem. And then they even saw the wrath of God. They saw fire break out. They were bitten by poisonous vipers from him. Like craziness, the miraculous stuff, the supernatural stuff that they saw and did, but that didn't make them necessarily come to God. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul gives a teaching on speaking in tongues, right? Tongues and prophecy, and he contrasts them because the Corinthians are... it seems like his teaching is a response to them kind of complaining about who's more spiritual, who can show that they're a more spiritual person and more connected to God, right? And so he gives them that teaching. And then chapter 13, and he says, okay, all that stuff about prophecy, speaking in tongues, now I am going to show you the most excellent way. I'm going to now show you the way to live. And of course, it's by walking in love. And he gives all the attributes of love. And I feel like that's the story in Ruth. Like there's all these miracles that happened for Israel and all these things, but it devolved into chaos, and he says, okay, now I'm going to show you the way, and this is how you're going to live. All right, so if you could stand, we're going to close in prayer. Jesus, I thank you that you love us. Lord, that you sacrificed your own body in greater ways than even Ruth and Boaz did. You sacrificed yourself on the cross for us, to redeem us from sin and death, that we may have your life. Thank you, Jesus. Lord, I thank you for this story that teaches us how to love one another. God, I pray that we would be a church that has slow feet, soft hearts, that we would be willing to sacrifice, that we would be willing to give of our time, be willing to give of our resource, and be willing to give our attention to you. Lord, and that you would honor each person as they do, and that it's you, as you are our rewarder, that you would reward them for all their faithful service, their faithful acts. Thank you, Lord. Bless this church as they go. It's 10:33, went just a couple minutes over, but the altars are open, and we're just going to keep this a house of prayer. So if you need prayer for anything, please don't hesitate. Come forward. We would love to pray for you. If you need to go get your children, you are free to go. God bless you.
You can use anything, Lord. You can use me.